Welcome everybody to another Skullball Movies review, a traditional review, mind you. This is Max Payne 3, a game that just came out a couple months ago. Now, let's get started. Alright, well, this is Chapter 2, I'm starting in. I want you just to get a preview of what the game is like before actually starting the whole thing off right away. So, Max Payne 3, this is obviously part of a trilogy or a series wherever they decide to go. And to be honest, I was extremely skeptical when this game was supposed to be coming out. I heard about it, I saw pictures of the new Max, and I'm like, what did they do with him? You know, he was all bald and fat, and of course right here he doesn't look too bad, but it looks extremely different from the original Max Payne. And I was extremely disappointed. I wanted to boycott the whole series. You know, I was like, this isn't what it's supposed to be like. This isn't what he's supposed to be like. And, but then I started to play it, and I'm like, you know, this game's not bad. It's not Max Payne, but by itself it's not a bad game. And so, after about halfway through, when the game started picking up, the story started getting climactic and really intense, and I was really into it. I started to feel, I'm like, you know, this is Max Payne. You know, I could feel it now that I had been involved in the story. So I felt stupid not giving it a chance in the first place.
I needed a real drink to deal with the electronic music and the robotic people.
So the comic style isn't in the game as much as the first two, but it's got its own unique style, sometimes a little annoying with the kind of camera muzzle flash, where it gets all staticky like you see at time to time. But this is its own thing. It's a spin-off of the first two, but it's its own game. Like, keep trying as you might, but it's nothing like the first two. It's fantastic. But not nearly as incredible and amazing and spectacular as the first two, in my opinion. And I'll explain that as I go through the review. One thing I did enjoy, obviously a big fan of the first two, was that it had a few nods, a few allusions to the first two games, and part of that was in clues, which are different collectibles throughout the story. Different things you can collect, and it explains more about the story as you go through, which was really very interesting to me. It added to the story, and I enjoyed that because the story was good for me. It's not very original, but it's definitely there. So here's the traditional bullet time. I finally get to get in the gameplay. And the great thing about this is the gameplay is intertwined with the cutscenes, so there's no interruption. They just interweave, and it's excellent. It's fantastic. It works very, very well. Okay, so you got to see original Max as the semi-clean-cut gentleman, and how he starts out in the story like that is he's a ruthless mercenary, just absolutely brutal. You know, just doesn't care who he kills as long as he gets the job done and gets paid. But during this, he's in a phase where he is utterly depressed. He just can't go on because there's nothing for him to do. He's killed the people that have taken out his family, and now he really doesn't have a reason to live. The only reason he's staying alive is he wants to go out with a bang. In some sort of crazy firefight, he wants to die that way. He wants to die kind of famous, kind of in glory, I guess. And it's kind of ironic because he's this gentleman-looking guy, but he's so brutal and ruthless. Then when he decides enough is enough, he's done with depression, he changes into this Max, which is a scarier-looking Max with no hair. He is fatter, big beard, but he becomes kind of like a salvation for himself. He becomes this guy who really wants things to be right. And I guess what you could say is it's just kind of the contrasting roles and the irony just kind of really add to the characterization of Max in this game. And I think it's by far the best characterization of him that they've had in this whole series. 1 and 2, yeah, were fantastic with how they made him, but they didn't have anything compared to how he changed and how he was when he was those two different characters. Because it's like he is two different characters. And it's really interesting to see him like this, as a guy who's just trying to make things right, and yet he looks like this. He looks like a bum.
3 hours or about
This chapter, where it starts out in Hoboken, New Jersey,
when it was that
is one of 2 of my favorite levels in the whole game.
more about the
I think you can see why right away. Look at Max. He looks almost pitch perfect to the way he was in number 1 and 2. If you notice the classic leather jacket, the classic leopard tie,
typical Jersey
clean shaven, he looks like a cop. You know, he looks like he used to. And I really enjoyed that. It's also great because once you get outside, it's snowing and it's very reminiscent of the first game's New York and how that just set the atmosphere like crazy.
sense of humor.
That's what I really loved about this and another segment that is a flashback to Hoboken. This is part of a flashback. And I kind of wish they would have integrated it more into the game, but you know, you can't spend too much time on flashbacks, and I understand, you know, making a new character and story, fleshing it out and all that. So it's understandable. At least they had the 2 levels that I really enjoyed. Destructible environments was a great way to add to the hecticness of the gunfights. I mean, it's pretty top notch. Like, you start shooting all over the place and eventually things just start collapsing and falling over. Another thing that this game didn't have compared to the first 2 was the disturbingness of just things that were around. Like, you see this dead body. That's not nearly as disturbing as some of the things the first 2 games had to offer, and I'm kind of disappointed about that because that was really how Max Payne got its style in the first place. Now, multiplayer is surprisingly addicting. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's all the aspects of single player but multiplayer. The gameplay is fantastic. Now, the maps are pretty much the same as single player, except kind of more expansive in a way. Like, some maps in single player are completely confined, whereas multiplayer, it's perfectly normal. There's a nice feature in this where you can loot dead bodies by holding B, and this gives you cash and or painkillers. It's really quite rewarding at times. Now, it's interesting because each character is completely different. You can, there's different gangs you can be affiliated with, and all these different gangs are customizable characters, and there's like 6 or 7 different types. Game Wars was a really interesting game mode in this entry. Basically, it's 5 different matches basically pinning two different gangs against each other, two random gangs. Um, and see at the bottom there's 5 different matches. First one was grabbing satchels and bringing them to certain places. Second one's takedown, where you kill a target. That is just randomly picked. And whoever comes out on top in most of the matches comes out on top throughout the whole session. And this can last about a half hour total. And this really adds to the replayability of multiplayer. But one thing I really did not like was the leveling up system. Honestly, it isn't very good at all. It's very similar to Call of Duty, and I'm not going to say that's why I don't like it. I'm going to say that it's because there's all the golden guns, and it's just a very slow process. You don't get very much cash for everything you do, so you better be looting like crazy or else you're not going to get anywhere. It just takes forever to get money. And basically, with each level, you unlock random things, such as, weapon unlocks and, traditional stuff like you'd see in a Call of Duty game. And it's really kind of disappointing because as fast-paced as the multiplayer gameplay is, it's really not fast-paced when it comes to leveling up. So in conclusion, Max Payne 3 is a very welcome addition to the series, even if it is extremely different from the others. It does have some flaws, yeah, but don't let that detract from the great experience you're going to get from the single player and the multiplayer, especially the single player. It's probably one of the most tugged in I've been on a narrative in a video game recently. It really keeps you going. It really wonders, you really wonder what's going to happen next. So for this game, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It's definitely up there. You should definitely check it out, borrow it from a friend, whatever you can do to at least play this for a little bit. See if it fits your style. It's a welcome addition to your game library.